Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all. We're kind of back to our usual Zoom, strictly Zoom meetings. So I get to see you again. I haven't seen many of you in a while because I've been at the live Zendo talks. So, but today the whole thing will be on Zoom. So I get to see you once again, and many old faces here that I've gotten used to over the last year. We've been doing everything on Zoom. Well, this morning I thought I'd like to talk about something that's, well, I was going to say it was difficult. That's difficult to talk about, but it's not so much that it's difficult to talk about. It's more like it's difficult to get across, and it's something I've talked about many times before, and so I'm not going to tell you what it is right now, because if I do, you might just gloss it over, plug up your ears and close your eyes, whatever. And I've heard this before, and that's the problem with it, is getting it across. Yes, you may have heard this before, but I'm going to talk about it in a different way and bring out some other ways of looking at this. I will tell you what this is before we're done. But it is, it's of supreme importance, really, but it doesn't seem that way. And when I mention it, when I say what it is, it seems like, well, what's that? That's nothing. And so I'm not going to say, but I want to talk about the implications for our not understanding this, and that I will say. And particularly today, when there's so much, well, really insanity in our society. It's just rampant today. And I think many of us feel this. And no matter what our viewpoints are, we feel this. And a lot of misunderstandings and of each other. And it seems like there's very little ground for us to come together and to agree on one thing or another. Endless topics over and over again. Even when it seems like we do have similar viewpoints, we'll sit there and nitpick and argue about the most minute thing. And when I first learned about this, I'd been studying Buddhism kind of on my own since my late teens, actually, but and I had gotten some instruction. I didn't realize it at the time. I was too naive, but it was instruction by a Theravadan master. Only later did I put that together and realize who I had experienced there, and I learned some meditation. I'd been sort of trying it on my own, but didn't know what I was doing. Still didn't know what I was doing. And later got more involved with other people, and spent some time out in California, got some more instruction there, Zen instruction, and was picking up a few things along the way. And every once in a while I'd hear about this, or I'd come upon it in my reading and didn't think too much of it, but it did seem like it was something that was, I don't know, was it emphasized? But it kept appearing. And finally, at some point, I met a Buddhist scholar, and first of probably, of many. And but this person was actually in school, just studying Buddhism academically, and then mentioned this and made kind of a big point of it. And I had the impression, yeah, there's something big about this, but could never make sense of it. And this person, still in their academic studies, didn't seem to have a full grasp of what this was either. But it was sometime later. It was after meeting my teacher, Kadage Roshi, that at some point I suddenly woke up to what this is and understood it, and realized the implications that this has for virtually everything we experience, everything we do, everything we think, how we live our lives. And couldn't be of more significance or of more importance. And yet, as I've learned over the many years since, it's very difficult to get this across to people, how important this is. And so, I try many times. I pointed out many different ways repeatedly. And yet, this is the easiest thing to gloss over and to, it isn't, it's kind of like, well, we easily understand it. Yeah, okay, maybe we nod to it or something. But perhaps we're just nodding to the fact that the awakened seem to think this is a big point. But why? It never gets taken up. And so I've tried to find many different ways to teach this and to point this out. But this past week, maybe, certainly in the last few weeks, well, this whole past year or more, but it just, it really struck me recently in listening to people arguing. It was on something on the radio, and arguing about, I don't know, current events and the different kinds of things that take place. All the difference, I don't know, QAnon and I don't know, I blank out here now, but all the different kinds of viewpoints that people have, and the enemies that they have, and the ones that they accuse, and the ones who accuse back and forth. And but in this case, it was several people kind of all on the same page, you might say, and yet they themselves were arguing among themselves about the finer points of their viewpoint, their understanding, their take on the world. I don't even remember now exactly what category or grouping they might fall into, because to me it doesn't matter. The same issue is there. We don't see this point. We miss it. And no matter what position we take, whether it's reasonable, seemingly sane, might seem sane to us, maybe not to others, but no matter what it is, even some viewpoint on Buddhism and Buddhist teachings, the Four Noble Truths, the dependent arising, and we can argue and fight and about what's the significant point here. I've heard people that I know quite well and have studied and worked with for many years who will downplay some aspects of Buddhist teaching, such as, say, the two truths. I've talked about this in the past, which is absolutely vital to understanding what it was that the Buddha saw and what it was that the Buddha taught. And but modern scholars today who feel like maybe we can just get rid of some of these teachings and the use of some of these terms. And so it just goes on, no matter what. If we're in some fundamentalist group of some kind, we can argue with people in our own group, let alone other fundamentalist groups or just other people in general. But across the board, if you have a human being there who isn't awake to this, to what is taking place, to what is really going on here, you will easily get caught in these kinds of situations. It drives so many of us to despair. We know something's wrong here, but we might have a conviction about this view or that view or a set of views. And maybe we want to use these views and to try to help others and to bring them out of their insanity, which we can see quite well because it isn't our own. But of course, the problem is we don't see our own, and nor do they, and they don't see their own. And so here we are again, and this is the human world. And it seems like today, I suspect we've been in this position many times before, though there's so many of us now and we're crowding the planet and we have such high technology and ability to affect the environment and each other in so many countless ways, far more powerful now than we've ever been. And yet still just as insane, just as crazy. And so we can inflict far more damage than other generations that have preceded us. And it's seemingly with no one with any clear understanding of what is taking place here, or how we might, or how we even got into this situation, or how, if possible, that we could ever pull ourselves out of the mad world that we seem to create and to occupy. So this is of critical importance. This thing I want to bring up, it is, which I've repeatedly in various ways, but it does have to do with the holding of views. And as I said, I didn't understand this at first. I started noticing it in my studies and that as an early practitioner and a student of Zen, well, Buddhism in general, kind of started out as. But pretty early on, focusing in on Zen and Taoism, but primarily then Zen. And still not understanding this point, wondering why it's such a big issue. Why do the awakened think that this is so important when it seemed almost forgettable or trivial? I mean, what's the big deal? And it does have to do with intentional action and or just intent or leanings of minds, inclinations of mind, and what you've heard me talk about repeatedly. You know, if you've been in taking my lectures and studies and things, I've been on this for decades now, so you've heard it many times. And there's a reason why I keep coming back to this, because it is of absolute central importance. And what I'm trying to do in the way I started out today, just to approach it in a little different way, is I'm trying to lay the emphasis now on just how important it is that we become mindful of this, mindful of our own leanings of mind, mindful of our own position, our own point of view, and realizing that it is just as insane as the next person's who is also clinging to a view. Perhaps maybe you agree with it to some degree, or a view that you find abhorrent. Doesn't really matter. The insanity is there. The insanity is just simply, just a basic definition of insanity is that we're out of touch with reality. We don't understand or see or know, or we're not living in the real world. Of course, for many of us, the real world is the world that we can rationalize and put into some functional form that's useful for us and that sort of thing. And that's very well and good. There's nothing wrong with that, certainly. And we can be some people can be very irrational in some of these areas where maybe we ourselves are pretty clear, insane and stable and all of that. Still, when it comes to this matter of really understanding this reality, what is taking place here, unless we wake up to its nature, which isn't like anything we can grasp, we don't understand it. More than that, we don't even understand that we don't understand, because we do understand so many things. We've conceptualized and can work very well with so many things. Most of us can, to some degree, here and there, in whatever field we might be in, or in any number of areas. So it's difficult for us to realize that when it comes to the actual, what can I say, background, just the full enveloping reality, that we don't have a clue. And that we don't even have a clue that we don't have a clue. This is difficult for us. We might be able to nod to that to some sense, to some degree, where we say, yeah, I kind of see that. But what can I do about it? I mean, it's the same for everyone else. And is there any way out of this? And we can just easily just pass it on, because I've got more important things to do and to take care of. Let me handle those things that I can understand and control and stuff like that. And so very few of us really stick with this and notice this very odd thing, this peculiar thing that the awakened point out to us. This is one of the two great insights of the Buddha, is this matter of intent, intentional action. And it's completely distinguishable from what we might call natural action. A lot of us today, I mean, many times when I've had discussions with people over the years about if the topic happens to come up about natural action, what's natural? And then what is, I guess, what unnatural or not natural action? Or aren't we natural? All of this. And the arguments begin again, because people are holding to views once again. And generally, I'll just try it if I can. I wasn't so skilled at this before, but I hope I'm getting a little better. Just try to stay out of those arguments. But I might just offer what the Buddhas wake up to, what they've awakened to. And it is just this matter that I have been pointing out now. This matter about acting out of leanings of mind, inclinations of mind, thinking that this is more important than that this is better than that, that this is the right way, that's the wrong way. All of this sort of stuff. And of course, then we want to go with the good and the right and the best, at least for ourselves. If we're really confused, we say, well, let's turn all that other stuff, the bad stuff, toward our foes and well, all that stuff again. But here we are. But when do we ever step out of this whole grab bag of confusion and madness and insanity? Very few of us ever find the way out of this, even though it's always with you. It's right in front of you. It's not right in front of you. It is you. Your true nature. It is just this. But it is a matter of seeing this. This morning, Jonas gave an excellent talk, student talk on our fall practice period now. It's just begun. He kicked it off with an excellent talk. And there were elements in his talk where he showed me that he does understand this. I was very, very impressed with his talk. Kind of a graduate level understanding here. And well, of course, we don't have graduate school here or anything like that. So we do have transmission, though. But he was showing some very profound understanding for him to make the remarks that he did. And it kind of works in this area of What do we do when we're in this situation? And are we going to make a point? How can we do this when other people, they have their points of view, and of course now we have ours. We can say, yeah, but is it a point of view? Is what I'm talking about, has what I've been talking about this morning, is that another view? Have I given you another view here? Of course, you could take anything that I've said here and turn it into a view and take it that way. It's not my intent that you do that. My only intent is to help you wake up. But this is a very critical point and a very subtle point, and this is the one that gets missed. It is just this, and this is a point that it was clear to me that Jonas has this. So he didn't talk about this directly, but for him to say what he was saying, he seems to understand this. This is possible to understand. When we get to a point where, say, I've been talking in the way that I have been today, I often do talk this way or point these things out. Let that plane pass over here. We can get to a point where we're talking with others and we're pointing out that to hold to any view at all, as though this were the truth, as though this were reality, as though this is the way we should go, that when I point this out, that if we hold to these views, any view at all like this, well, now we're confused because it doesn't match reality. We can't put reality into a conceptual form. And so I point this out, but then people will come back with, now this is the critical thing. People will come back with, yeah, but you, Steve, you too have a view. This thing you've been saying to us now, well, this is just another viewpoint. Well, is it? What have I been saying? What I've been saying, really, concepts and ideas can be pulled out of anything I'm saying or anything anyone says, whether they've actually said this or not. Whatever concept, whatever idea you're extracting from it. But really, this is the point that really gets missed. Just don't even notice it. We don't have to do this sort of thing. We can notice that when we grasp a view, we are immediately entangled in confusion. We can notice this. That's all I've been pointing out. And you can say, well, yeah, but Steve, you're giving us a view now about that. Well, am I? What view have I given you there? I didn't ask you to believe this or to believe that, or to believe that if you take hold of a view, now you're entangled. I'm not asking you to believe it. I'm just asking you to look at it. Just notice this. That's all. I'm not arguing for a particular point. That's why I also point out that Buddhism is not a belief system. There's all sorts of expressions of Buddhism, various Buddhist sects that do take on or present Buddhism as though it were a belief system or something like this. They have to acquire certain beliefs in reincarnation or beliefs in what, I don't know, any number of things. Yeah, well, that's what it is. That's that. You want to call that Buddhism? Fine, that's fine. I don't care. I will say that I don't know if that's Buddhism or not. Some Buddhists seem to think that. They seem to think that that's what Buddhism is. That you believe these things or you believe those things, or you take these tenets and whatever. But, and that's a belief. Those are ideas. I'm just saying, just notice if you take hold of anything there, you're going to be confused. You're not going to see what the Buddhists see. Well, you do see what they see, because they don't see anything that you don't see, but they're not confused. And it's to take hold of a particular view, no matter what it is, no matter how reasonable it is, and how useful it is. If you take hold of it as though this is the way it is, that this is an explanation for things, you know, and it could be the most mundane, you know, thing of all. And you think that this is how things are, this is how they're made, this is what they're made of. And we'll hold various kinds of views, or this is what you should do, this is what you should believe. These views could range in all kinds of ways, in all different directions, covering any conceivable thing at all. All I'm pointing out is to take hold of any fragment of that, and the smallest individuated idea that can be pulled out of a range of views, or an object, or a thought, or a feeling. And to think that there's some substance to this, and you'll argue for it or against it, or try to acquire this, or you try to get rid of this, anything that comes with this. If you argue that and with other people, and you know, and put some vigor into it and that sort of thing, no, this is entanglement. This is confusion. This is insanity. This is being out of touch with reality. I'm not telling you what reality is. If I told you what reality is, well, it's just another idea. Do you want me to, am I trying to encourage you to grab that idea? No, what I'm trying to help you see is if you take hold of anything, you're lost in confusion. I'm not telling you don't ever take hold of it. You can take hold of things lightly, maybe. You know, they're functional and useful. Take hold of yourself. Yeah, is this something? Because we'll take that very seriously. Well, me, and I'm very concerned about me. Oh, what happens after I die, and all these kinds of things. But these are just views. It is possible to live without taking hold of views. This is what the awakened keep telling us. Dogen, I've pointed this out many times recently, where he tells his monks, he says, I tell you, all monks, the reason you don't wake up is because you don't relinquish your views. All of them. Everything. Don't you hold a view that if you're going to walk down the sidewalk, that the sidewalk is there, it's going to support you and hold you? Just walk down the sidewalk. Well, that piece of pavement looks like it's sliding into a hole or something. I don't know if I want to step. Well, then just don't step on it. That's all. But you don't have to hold a particular view. And then when it comes to the more abstract things about, well, we can go to this heaven or that heaven, or not, or we might go to hell, or there's nothing. It's just oblivion after we die. And we can argue and argue and argue and argue and grasp and hold and get whatever we can from that. And we live a very miserable and confused life. It's difficult to get along with everyone that way. We can just live. We can breathe. We can recognize the leanings of our mind. The mind leans, it inclines when you are holding to some particular thing. If you're not holding to one thing any more than the next thing that is there in your mind as a whole, well, you're not being tossed away. You're not caught in the confusion. You're not caught up in belief. And still, here it is, this reality. It keeps unfolding, keeps unfolding, keeps unfolding. Moment by moment, we can just bring ourselves back to being awake, being awake. You don't have to measure it. You don't have to name it. You don't have to calculate it. All that stuff that we waste so much energy and time, expense on maintaining or feeling we need to do this or do that, to have the fanciest house on the block so everybody would admire us, or it's endless, the stuff that we'll do. Or get revenge, get back at those who shorted us in some way. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And do we reflect on the actual life we're living, how miserable that is? How, it's unsettled. There's no understanding there. There's biting pangs of anger and hatred. And we're also just going overboard in the other direction as well, which only will lead to further disappointment down the road. It's a matter that we wake up to how this world unfolds moment by moment and live it out. You do need to do things in a sense of, well, you need to breathe. Well, then take a breath. You get yourself in a situation where you can't breathe, you're underwater, just deal with that moment though, whatever the reality is. Most of the time, everything will be fine. If all of humanity, I don't expect this. This is the funny water we live in. It's us. But we feel like we've got to clean up the water, make it pure for us all. But of course, not everybody's going to do this. Most of us don't even approach what it is that I'm trying to point out this morning. And so the water remains, muddy and all of this. But still, here we are. We can live here. You, me, as individuals, I don't have to live in an insane way, in a driven way, in a way where I'm trying to bring about certain results. Yes, I want to help all beings wake up. Yes, that's a deep desire I have. I want to help you. I feel the pain when I see people living in confusion. It's like, I feel that pain. It pains me to see that. It pains me when I know that I can point out something that might help you out of that. It pains me that I can't find ways to express it for, it's been, I don't know how many years now since I've been teaching, since I've understood this. And how many people have I helped? Anybody? I don't know. And but I do know it's very hard to get any of this across. It's hard to say what I've been saying this morning. And I don't know if I'm making any sense at all. But of course, at the same time, I really don't want you to grasp anything about what I'm saying. What I'm trying to help with is to encourage you to watch your mind. Recognize when you're clinging to this, you're reaching for that, you're trying to figure this thing out. People come to me with all kinds of questions about their understanding or enlightenment or something like this. As if there were something there for me to acknowledge or to hand you or to say, no, it's not that, it's something else over here. But I don't say things like that. And then I wait 10, 20, 30 years to see if you'll notice what I'm pointing out there when I say, no, I don't say things like that. You might imagine that you'll hear me saying things like that, but I really don't say things like that. Because I'm not confused. I mean, as I talk to you now, I'm not sitting here weighing things out against stuff that I've read here and there, like arguments in a book or a philosophy or something like this. That isn't it at all. I've studied enough of that kind of stuff. That isn't going to help you what I'm pointing out this morning. And the sciences. Spent a lot of time in my early life. Even now, I read science and philosophy. Well, not so much philosophy anymore. But yeah, I'm curious about what people are thinking, whatever. A lot of interesting things out there. But it's this matter of day-to-day living, moment-to-moment living. This is the central thing. And watch your mind and notice when, because you won't probably notice right away, you're hooked on something and you're getting worked up in one way or another. Sometimes you might, other times you might be pretty, placid and calm through the whole time, but nevertheless, you're still caught. But at some point you might realize how feverishly you're getting worked up over one thing or another. Or not, even if you're in a very calm state of mind. But you can recognize this, and then you can drop that part of it that, this must be so, or this is what I can do. You can, or hold it loosely if there is some functional thing you need to do. Like not just take another breath, but maybe to eat. Well, then in order to eat, maybe you need to cook something. You need to have some way of getting your vegetables. You have a job, you make some money. There's practical things we need to do. We just take care of those things one by one as they come up in your day. And we can just live this way. And very, very peacefully and with a grounded sense. So even when the world around us is going crazy, we can still just live this way day to day. Maybe you might be able to help somebody notice this too. I'll tell you, it's very hard. You can't deliberately go out and try to, point these things out to people. In the position I've been in here, I'm no longer the head teacher, but I still hope to do some teaching here. But I do have this opportunity just because of the way my life had worked. I get called on to do things like this, or I give talks at other centers. Now via Zoom, I've been doing a bit more of that sort of thing around the country, around the world. But in this case, is people, they find out about me and they'll call me, they'll ask me. I don't go out there looking for places to talk or to take people by the, I don't go out on the street and grab them by the collar and say, no, listen, I got something to tell you here. It's very important. Even though I want to help everybody as I can, if I can. But I'm not going to, with intent now, go out there and try to wake everybody up. But for however it was, the way that my life has turned, twisted, and turned, and I certainly never thought I'd end up living the life that I did. I had some ambitious ideas about a couple of different careers I might pursue. But this is what I discovered. This. And anyway. But no matter where we are, take care of your life moment by moment. You might have to make plans and this sort of thing, but also be aware of how they might impact other people and the environment and any number of things. But most of all, from moment to moment, don't lose track of your mind. Be aware of the leanings of your mind. And what it is, I've pointed this out too many times, that what it is that the awakened never lose sight of is the whole. They're not caught up in me. They don't see me or I as something separate from just us. And we can live accordingly. Of course, we appear as a separate person. You know, we occupy we're localized in a relatively small space and that sort of thing. We'll take care of all of these things. But just watch your mind. And then if you just take some time, probably years, to really start getting the hang of it, where you can catch yourself when you're getting lost, caught up in the confusions or the anger or whatever that might come up in the mind. But little by little, we can learn to live without going too far with any of these things. And they still come up. I don't think you'll ever get to a point where it's perfectly smooth. And I don't know if that's necessarily desirable anyway. I mean, I still I find myself getting angry or something. Usually it doesn't go too far with me, I hope, these days, but this is what we can do. There's no end to this. We can endlessly refine our life and our minds and learn to live a more sane, in a more sane manner. Okay, well, maybe I think I've said everything. Well, I don't know if I've said everything that I was going to say this morning or not, but I think I'll stop at this point. But do you have any questions or concerns, comments, or anything about anything I've said this morning? But again, I'd say there's one last point, though, that this is of paramount importance, this matter, that we watch our minds and then make this effort. Don't ever scold yourself when you catch yourself winging out there somewhere. That's very normal. Gradually over time, we don't have to wing out quite so far or with such intensity or gradually. Don't ever expect to get to some kind of perfectly smooth line that you're living in. I'm not saying it's not possible, but that's not the point. The point is from moment to moment, wherever we are, we can start practicing now. And that is to make some effort to just watch your mind. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge others. Okay. But this is of paramount importance. That was a thing I just wanted to emphasize at the end. So, okay. So any questions from anyone? Or?
I have a question.
Yes.
A lot of talks, we talk about suffering and confusion, anger. But the same thing can be said about any emotion, I would imagine. Love, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it could be said. Of course, love. What exactly is love? And sometimes love can involve what's maybe say being possessive or just total infatuation, or could be any number of things. What exactly is love? Here in English, we just have the word love. At least the ancient Greeks, they had several words for love. There's agape, which is, I believe, the love of God, and filio, that's brotherly love, and of course, amore, is that? Well, that's not Greek, but is that, I don't know. But love more on the order of what we might think. But there's so exactly what is love referring to there? But again, the point is to just watch our minds. I could say this is another point that Jonas brought up this morning, and it was gleaning from, he seems to have this understanding here that I've been pointing to here, Another thing that can be pulled from this is that, oh, no, I lost the point. What was I going to say? I'm sorry, I forgot. There's trouble with being an old man. If I don't stay with the line I'm thinking, if I switch tracks for a moment, I can't get back to where I was. I'm sorry. But I just wanted to point out to Jonas. What did Jonas say? Anyway, but it was something that he noted anyway. But yeah, so but
it's just sort of a matter of not grasping too tightly to give them that emotional love.
Yeah. And so whether it's anger or it's love or any what we might call a wholesome. And that's the point. Yes. And not to be so caught up in right and wrong and good and bad. Because we have that story of the wise Chinese farmer. Many of you know that. I think I won't get into it, but very difficult to say what's good, what's bad. And that's what we'll look at, But what's easy to spot is what's of the whole, and what is of the fractured, divided self. These are starkly different. They're not totally separate, though. But there's a difference there, and it's a different kind of mind, a different cast of mind. That's if we're caught up in one or the other. So if we forget the self, we can do this. Master EQ, let go of the idea I exist. Dogen, to study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. And to the extent that we don't, we keep putting ourselves and my point of view and what I want and how that might affect me, and I find that threatening. And if this is what's constantly occupying us, we're seeing the world in a very fractured and divided way. Now the mind is leaning all over the place. This is not a mind of wholeness. And but this is the thing that the awakened never lose sight of, is the whole. And we can learn to live that way too, where to the extent that we can drop our own measure, our own point of view, and just set that down. It doesn't mean throw it away. It might be a perfectly fine point of view, maybe a fairly, wholesome one or something. But just stop owning it, and then forget yourself. And the way to forget yourself is to just watch your mind. To the extent that your mind is leaning, you're caught up in self. To the extent that it doesn't lean, it begins to resemble the mind of totality or reality itself. And here there'll be complete understanding and peace, and we'll be rational and sane, all of that. To the extent that we keep missing this, or we get off to some degree, and it's only when we're off that there are degrees of anything. But that's when we get into trouble. So we can always start to recognize this. To the extent that we're caught up in our own little individual point of view, we've lost sight of the whole here. And all the misery and confusion and fear and loathing is caught up in that. And so we can just drop them. There are certain emotions like love, say, that might, take on would seem more wholesome and that sort of thing. Yeah, but again, these can get confused. Like I say, you can find jealousy and possessive love and stuff like this that, that isn't particularly wholesome. So, but that's what, what we can start to notice. And then things that are involved the fractured right from the very start, those things will start to become glaringly obvious after a time. So that's really the thing to be looking for, in a way. And to watch your mind, the leanings of your mind, to that degree, you're getting more acquainted with the whole, the appearance of the whole in this moment right now. To the extent your mind isn't lunging toward this and away from that, yeah, it's starting to resemble reality, the mind of wholeness. And that's where we want to go. This is why the awakened, once they taste this and they recognize it and they see this, and they come back to that. And they don't go away for too long before they catch it. And but if we're not aware of this and we're not looking for it, we'll be wandering around, being tossed about like I don't know, like a ball on a billiard table or something, or a pinball. I don't know, something like that. So I don't know. Is that okay? Okay. Anything else? Oh, Mike.
Yes, I have some views. I have some views that we're in the midst of a global pandemic, that those who can get vaccinated should get vaccinated and wear masks in public. It's hard not to have views like that. Where am I going wrong?
I don't think you're going wrong in that. I got vaccinated and I wear a mask under appropriate situations. But even though I'm vaccinated and all of that, and yeah, so, but I didn't do this out of any particular kind of leaning of mind or whatever. It's just looking at things in terms of wholeness.
Yeah.
It fits very well with that. I'm vaccinated not just for me, but for all of you guys, and I wear a mask for the same reason. And if we all saw this and did this, I'm sure this pandemic would have been shut down long ago.
Yes, and I get angry about that.
People screaming about, oh, this is, you wear the mask and you do this and that, and we're slowing down the economy. Are you crazy? What's slowing down the economy is the fact that we don't put an end to this thing. But we can. And then why don't we? Well, there's some people that have certain beliefs, and they're holding to these beliefs that, I don't know, I'll turn into a lizard person or something, or the government is spying on me. If I take the vaccine, they can hear my thoughts. And and of course, those are totally lunatic ideas, but there's plenty that might even seem kind of reasonable. And yet, is it? And or maybe it's just simply, I'm afraid of the needle. I'm afraid of getting a shot. Well, okay, yeah, but it isn't going to kill you, Yeah. Oh yeah, I've heard that some people. Well, yeah, sure, but there we go. Always caught up in the thinking, in the grasping. When in fact, we can just back off on this. And then in the end, it seems like the wholesome thing to do was to go get my shots, and not just for myself. Even if it was just for myself, if it happened to be a disease that worked in that way, well, yeah, maybe so. I don't know. And I'm not going to argue about it or fight about it. But there's a way we can live, and the various choices that are coming our way, just look at them and, and try not to act out of, oh, I want this, or I'm afraid of that.
Yeah.
Just do something that is best for us all if you can. And if it doesn't seem to have those implications, well, then just give it your best.
Okay.
I wouldn't spend too much time thinking about these things. This is more a matter, you can kind of feel what's the right thing to do in the sense of right being not right as opposed to wrong, but right being this is of the whole. It has more of a wholesome feeling about it. And so the awakened are very much in touch with that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not acting out of they're not acting out of self, that because they're out there You don't lose sight of the implications this has for others, not just other people, but the stones and the creeks and the leaves. And
Yeah, I get angry at people that won't get vaccinated, though.
yeah, and then, but we have to also understand, that this part of the muddy water, and people are confused, and yeah, sometimes I'll feel a little bit of that anger coming up, but then I once I start to realize I'm going that way, that isn't very helpful, and I
Yeah.
feel sorry for these people who are confused to that degree, you know, and but I don't have to get angry with them, or even angry with the situation. This is the situation we're in. So still, I'll feel anger coming up a little bit, but usually when I start to feel it coming up, I'll take a look at it, and then I look at myself. I'm not going to look at that thing that thing out there is making me angry. I stop looking at that and I start looking here. I'm aware that there's anger coming up now. For me, just to stick it on that thing out there or that person out there or whatever, that's just going to perpetuate it. What about me? I'm in this equation too, if it's something like that. And this is where I can do something about it, right here, right where I sit. I might not be able to do anything about what's out there.
Yeah.
Well, we're at kind of the end of the hour. Is that okay, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And I don't see any hands here, so well, thank you very much. It was good to see you all. Bye now.